Ms. Brunner, what is there to report for the summer edition VIVANESS? Also from my part, first of all, I would like to extend a warm welcome on behalf of Nürnberg, BIOFACH VIVANESS, and also on behalf of all hosts from the Trade Fair Center in Nuremberg. We're delighted, very much delighted, that our partners, IFOAM Organics International, actually the organizer and the Association of by organic food, and also the ideal supporters of VIVANESS were prepared to jointly organize this day today. We do hope that you will take a lot of knowledge, information, inspiration from the Organic Industry Review and the 2 Congress sessions today, and look forward to our trade fair in the summer edition in Nuremberg. At this point, I'd like to give you a short outlook with regards to the Trade Fair Duo, which will take place this year for the first time as a summer edition from the 26th to the 29th of July. The industry of organic food and natural food will actually are developing very positively, and you will get lots of facts and figures. And also after the industry press conference and the Impulse and Insight conferences, you will learn about that. At the same time, and politically, a lot of things are currently being pushed for more ecological future suitable for the grandchildren and a more resilient planet. And so these are just a view of the many reasons to look forward to the personal reunion of the organic and natural cosmetics community in summer with us in Nuremberg in July 22. Because that means 4 days with all facets, and we can experience that with all our senses, networking, getting new business contacts, and existing contacts can be deepened again personally. And this also includes, as usual, discovering a lot of new things, being surprised and getting inspiration for the daily business. We're currently expecting a total of 2,500 exhibitors in BIOFACH and VIVANESS this year who are going to present themselves to the international trade public. And against the background of the postponement of the Trade Fair Duo from February to July every day, further inquiries reach us for the participation of interested companies. We, the Trade Fair team at the NürnbergMesse, work with all our energy to be able to welcome as many exhibitors and visitors and media representatives as possible to our exhibition center in this pandemic year, which is so special for everyone, which also means that our customers and all of you can actually experience a wonderful and safe trade fair experience. Of course, this summer exhibition and summer edition also includes that we take the opportunities how outdoor elements, a kind of summer feeling, can be conveyed and integrated into the event. The most important thing for the Trade Fair Duo, for all participants involved, is that finally organic and natural cosmetics products can be experienced with all senses, and that means smelling, tasting and feeling. With our hygiene and access concept, we created the framework allowing us to make the trade fair a safe and successful experience. Since last autumn, we could already have some positive experience at this point. So the practical test has been passed with success, also from our customers' perspective. The industry is therefore developing positively and dynamically. We are presently shaping a more ecological future which is fit for our grandchildren. An increasing number of people are deciding in favor of organic food and natural cosmetics. The manufacturers come up with lots of promising innovations. Trade and catering are developing new concepts and ideas. However, at the same time, the industry also experiences a huge transformation process, which is actually pushed by the ongoing digitization, and the industries are also facing lots of new challenges. For instance, raw material procurement, more and more sustainable packaging, or questions for a more sustainable and circular economy. And where better than at BIOFACH VIVANESS for the long-awaited exchange on all these topics to take place in concentrated form over 4 days in one place and with the relevant players and here in Nuremberg. And with this in mind, I would like to cordially invite you to take away a large portion of industry know-how and the most recent figures and knowledge and inspiration that should actually help you to excite your appetite to dive into the physically occurring BIOFACH and VIVANESS and to exchange views on all these topics to discover new products and to experience them. We're looking forward to seeing you. Thanks a lot. So thanks a lot, Ms. Brunner, for this first outlook. And of course, we don't want to keep you waiting for a long time. I think the colleagues of our partners already waiting to get started. I can also already see that Joyce Möbius is here, and I would like to pass on to her. Good morning. Hi, Joyce. I'd like to pass on to you. So she's actually works at the Association of German Food Industry, and she will actually host the German food sector and also the press conference, and she's going to present that. We're all curious to hear the present figures and then to categorize them correctly. Thank you very much, my dear Barbara Berg and Ms. Brunner in Nuremberg. Hello, everybody from Berlin, ladies and gentlemen, dear media representatives. It's wonderful to see that you actually have accessed us from Germany and to the entire world. We're very happy to see your interest. Now you can also see the PowerPoint presentation. Here we got it on behalf of IFOAM, Organics International, and the Association of Organic Food Industry. Would like to extend a warm welcome to the balanced press conference of the German Ecological Food Industry 2022. Here in the next hour, you will learn from us how organic things have developed worldwide and in Germany and what the political consequences are. My name is Joyce Möbius, and today with my colleagues, Joanna Püksch, who are actually taking care of the chats backstage, I'll guide you through this digital event and live again in Nürnberg in summer before I present today's partners some words about how we proceed and about some technical details. Actually, it was too far. We are starting each topic with a short input, and afterwards you will see the political evaluation. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat. We will answer them as well as possible, and we'll also ask them live. So please use the chat, and please tell us who you are and for whom you report, and feel free, if you're not aware of that, please actually have a look of the netiquette. It's not different from after 2 years now of Corona. Everything is virtual, but nevertheless. So information. If you've only joined us now, dear media representatives, we are very, very glad about the very, very high interest shown by you. We would like to point out that we have a lot of spectators, and for sure, we won't be able to answer all the questions. But after the event, at our press points, we will be available for you. And as my colleague Barbara has already said, and so this will also relive event. If you have technical problems, please refer to info@presslive.de. Now, let's get started right now. And first of all, I would like to present you the experts of our panel in the order in which they're going to talk. First of all, I would like to welcome Diana Schark. Good morning, Diana, of the Agrarmarkt Informationsgesellschaft. She actually dives into the German organic market and tells us what has happened on the surfaces and on the market. The evaluation of this development will be taken by Tina Andres of the Association of Ecologic Food Economy, BÖLW, and tells us what has to be concluded from this. And afterwards, we go into the wide world with Dr. Helga Willer from the Research Institute of Organic Agriculture. She will give us facts and figures. And afterwards, the political evaluation of the international figures and facts by Louise Lutikold from IFOAM Organics International. So everything is going to be started by Diana Schark, who will have a look at how organic things have developed in Germany. And don't forget, if you have any question you would like to ask Ms. Schaak, please put them into the chat. Good morning. Welcome from my part as well, from the AME and Bonn. Now, I'm actually the facts and figures lady, and I'm going to present you a couple of them. Of course, there are a lot more, but let's get started with agriculture. How has agriculture developed? Now, we have 10.8% of the services in Germany that have organic agriculture. These are the 2021 figures on these services. There are lots of different cultures. We have more actually oil plants. One of all legumes are on organic farms, and 1 in 5 hectares of the fruit services has ecologic agriculture, and with vegetables it's 12%. We have a plus in the potatoes, 12.4%, and 880,000 hectares of organic greenland. So that's almost half of the German organic service and the agricultural area. The other half with some permanent cultures of 60,000 hectares. With the farms, we also have a very positive development, no longer that dynamic as it used to be in the last few years. We now have another 320 organic farms, which is almost 1%, which added up, but in total it's 13% of all organic farms in Germany. These are the first estimates of the BÖLW. So altogether, we have a total of 36,000 organic farms in Germany, and this year another surface was added, which is quite as big as Berlin. And now talking about the areas, in 2021, we had an increase in services of almost 5%. That means 4.8%, 82,000 hectares were added, out of which 58,000 hectares of the association services. That means a total of 64% of these organic services in Germany. They are actually worked according to very strict regulations of the Organic Association. That's 500,000 of hectares more than in the past. Then let us come to the market. We could see that we have a development in areas which is no longer that dynamic than it used to be in the past few years. As of 2060, we had this change, which actually went down, but we can also see that with the cultures where very often the demand exceeds the supply. And of course, last year, such as in the case of corn, we had very humid weather. Of course, there were bigger areas. We had 760,000 hectares of organic agricultural land and 300,000 of corn services. We have a larger area in 2021. We had a slightly higher harvest, 4% higher, with 1.23 million tons. But above all, we actually got more oat and spelt. So actually, what the recent price developments were taken into consideration. So good prices were achieved, and a couple of products were also cultivated more. But we don't have we have fewer wheat and barley and triticale, so that shows itself in the price, which rose, especially the food and corn that has actually become much more expensive. But this is around 400 euros per deciton. And what has also increased a lot are the leguminous prices. So protein food has become much more expensive because it's so scarce in availability, not only in Germany, but also in the adjacent countries, so that the mixed food prices have increased as well for the breeding companies that get more money, it's no longer an easy situation. Just to show you the example of milk, we have much higher organic milk prices in the second half, which are clearly above 50 cents in the last quarter. The last was 41.7. But at the same time, there are also strong increases in costs on the part of the producer. You can see that much more in the conventional milk, which has become very, very scarce and expensive. So actually, milk supply actually went down, whereas in the organic area, it has increased. Conventional has actually gone down. So this is the reason for this price development in 2021. We only have 3% more, and with regards to the proceeds, for sure, there will be a clear plus due to the higher prices. So the organic food production here too, new companies have joined us. We have an increase of 7% of food processors in 2021 as compared to 2015. It's even 24% more producers. So that's a clear dynamic in the last few years with new actors. So altogether, 17,350 bioprocessors, organic processors, who process organic products, and altogether these were 100,000 products. I mean, the figure 96,509 products, which have the European organic seal. And now let us talk about the market. For sure, this is a figure which will be interesting to all of you. What has happened here, and you can also see that after this booming year, 2020, where we had a plus of 22%, and this organic market when people just were at home cooking and eating. So in 2021, this boom continued, no longer as much, but this was not to be expected. We have an increase of 5.8% in organic food sales in 2021, which means almost 15.9 or 15.87 billion euros in sales with organic food, and the most dynamic ones continuing to be, like last year, the food retail trade. So the discounters is more stronger than the ones with the full assortment. So 2021, it was still the other way around. And also the structured markets who actually could really grow considerably with their price assortment and actually extended their product range. It's interesting to see that over the year, it actually leveled off. This growth leveled off because last year the pandemic started in March only in 2020, and then the sales actually increased, and in 2021, in the first quarters, we still had a higher growth because there was lockdown, and this normalized more. The more things became normal again, the more actually it leveled off. But it was in the plus throughout the year, with the exception being October, where there was a slight minus. But all the months actually showed a clear plus, more organic food than in the already very dynamic 2020. Particular. So people loved to buy particularly vegetable drinks and meat substitutes. It's very exciting to see that now we have a share of 6.8% of share in turnover. That's the first estimate we have. In 2020, this was still 6.4%. And we can see that in later charts. The conventional food market has not grown any further. This is why the share has grown much more than before. And now let us have a look at the expenses and the changes and the purchasing quantities 2021. On the left in orange, the expenses, on the right, the quantities, and usually this works rather in parallel. That means the prices for most of the products have risen a little only, some exceptions being potatoes, for instance, or where prices were lower in the first half of the year, but now they have risen again. And in general, on the whole, we can say so far we've only had slight price increases in the shops. And I already said that the producer prices at a lot of points went up, especially the costs went up. That means much more. And this should change in 2022. So in the shop itself, in order to ensure we can cover the high costs for transport, energy, and so on, we need higher prices there. And here, I would like to show you a small comparison with regards to the overall market. The entire food market has remained rather stable, a bit going down, but this is no final data. This is why we have this estimate only, but we can see individual product groups of GfK, the market research company, and we see that that products that grew in 2020 on the conventional market go down a bit, with two exceptions. We see the orange bars, which is meat substitute and milk substitutes. In both product groups, the conventional market has grown much more. In case of the meat substitutes, particular, they grew much more than the others. These are pioneering products where in the organic market with this. So they started with sales and development, but lots of producers actually joined, and also conventional ones, and they actually came up with products in the stores, especially when it comes to meat substitutes, so which are easier to produce with conventional processes. With the organic meat substitute, if you want to use local products, raw materials such as peas, you need to develop things further on to give it the right texture. And all the other products, as you can see, do no longer have this huge growth they used to have in the last few years, but they have classical products such as meat and butter and milk, which are leading this list. Meat continues, although it's a small level, is still 2% of the organic meat sold. But there is a huge demand, and this is quite contrary to the entire market development, because so meat is actually going down a bit because people consume meat in a more conscious way and eat less meat. And the other product group and vegetables continue to be there. So the harvests actually turned out to be a good one. There's a better local provision. We have more meat. And so this growth all over, there are two products, flour and oil, which had grown considerably last year, but they've only grown a bit this year. The typical Hansa products, this is no longer that dynamic right now, but at least a lot of a high organic share. So that's everything I wanted to share with you. A short look at the figures. Now we're exciting to hear about the evaluation. Thank you very much, Diana. There is one question I would like to ask you. Thomas Mannheim-Hörmann from Redaktionsnetzwerk Deutsch, Germany. Can you give a very short information on how much sales increase 2021 account for the price increase and the quantities? Well, if you actually have a look at the entire product range, if you actually totally adapt, you have between 1% and 2% of price increases, and accordingly 4 to 5% regarding the increase in quantities, more or less like this. Wonderful, thanks a lot. Dear journalists, we're trying to answer all your questions afterwards. Thank you very much, Diana Shah, for actually going through the figures. Now we are very excited to hear about the political assessment, which will be given by Tina Andres, CEO of the Association of Ecological Food Economy. Good morning, my dear Joyce. Good morning. Well, welcome here at the press conference with regards to the industry figures. Thanks a lot, Daniela Brunner from BIOFACH, for Diana Shah, for the presentation of these very exciting figures. A dynamic growth, wonderful. A dynamic and strong, resilient organic industry, which actually opened up 30 years ago. Different food economy, so fit for the grandchildren and also good for the environment, the climate. And I think when we look at the figures, we have managed to do that. So welcome on behalf of the BÖLW to all media representatives, to all organic colleagues, and to all friends who watch us today, and you were quite as curious as we were to see the figures. We are really glad that you've all come here. And because it shows that the figures, what the figures already show, the society is willing to have to transform the food industry, and the organic food industry is willing to continue this transformation. For me, this shows shown by the fascinating figures Diana pointed out. The purchasing behavior of meat or meat substitutes is drastically undergoing a change. The trend was organic meat, and if meat at all, but low quantities, but from the very best sources. And in fact, also people also tend to take meat substitutes, which actually speak a different language than the conventional ones do. The consumers have become aware that too much meat is actually bad for the climate because food changes the world. So the consumers buy more organic food. That's what the figures show. And the processors have also changed it wonderfully. So the farms actually changed to organic industry, although not to the extent we need to create transformation. Nevertheless, a current survey of the Farm Association shows that 20% of the conventional farms wish to change to organic food. That's a considerable figure and a very clear and good signal. The good news is the society is ready and willing. So what is missing? What is required to change, to transform more farmers? How can we get more organic food into our canteens, into the schools, to the kindergartens, to the hospitals? And why do we afford for 300 millions of euros for diseases rather than organic food? So one thing is clear, the political framework is not okay. So the last 16 years were rather hostile towards organic food. The coalition contract actually has a different signal and a good target, 30% of organic food by 2030. That's the target of the new government, and we really explicitly welcome it. So it is really an ambitious target, but we are ambitious as well, and we've always been ambitious. But of course, we need more than only a target. We need a specific business plan and how to implement that. So let me compare it with the energy change. Then it becomes very clear what we need. So there was a clear decision, clarity on the fact that we can't proceed like as we did before. So we can't actually work with non-sustainable energy sources. And there was a clear decision that renewable energies and this, which rules unmistakably a way to go. So it actually sets the investments and all the targets and the framework for research, and it also sets a clear sign for the sustainable exit from the sources, coal and so on. And since actually this contributes to 30% to this change of climate, we need a clear sign at this point. And just like this, we also need an organic action plan which promotes the transformation of the food industry with organic as a clear target for a sustainable, climate-resilient system, which is fit for the further generations. The figures clearly show organic has what it needs. It works. It has worked for years and is a tested and proven system. And so far, actually, in spite of and not with politics, the legal framework of the organic regulation, in addition, and we have a self-funded organic control system for production and processing. And we have organic seal, which is known to the consumer in Germany and also in the European Union. And we have a market which can do more and which can take more raw materials than we produce now. So what do we need as the next few steps? Similar to a coherent and concerted organic future strategy across all areas with sufficient funding. Because there's one thing we should be aware of: this change, this transformation costs money. Not doing it costs much more than as the future Commission for Agriculture really recommended and described. If we fail to do that, it may cost the world for future generations. We need at least 30% more organic research, or even more, just to catch up with this low financing of the last 30 years. We need funds for changing, for transforming the farms and processing and changing also retail, because farmers along the entire food industry supply chain need an income they can live on. And we need transformation perspective for the rest of those who actually do not engage in organic agriculture by 2030. And this is exactly what depends on politics. They have to set the framework. We need commitment, and we are available with all our knowledge to help with the transformation, because food will change the world, and the right food will change the world. And this is something, this is good news we can share and support with everything we do, and what we eat or what we do not eat, and what we actually decide with our money purse. We can actually control the direction of politics to make it an effective and resilient food system which protects the types. So time is running. It's still 5 to 12, but we can still do something about it. And since there's always something good to eat, I can follow Daniela's Brunner's invitation in the beginning. Let me just repeat that. So welcome to BIOFACH Summer Edition in Nuremberg this year. There's a lot of good food, and there's a vital and active and inspired organic food industry you can get to know. Now, once we talk about that, I would like to point out that the OLW is going to celebrate its 20th anniversary, and that we would like to make a toast for the next 20 years, and would like to point out the launch of our new website, so easy explanation of organic food for everything, and our ecological field days. Everything can be found at BOLW. Thank you very much for your interest, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, dear Tita Andres, for your political assessment of the current balance situation and the other information you could share with us. Dear journalists, please continue to ask your questions in the chat. But now we just go from the German organic world to the ecological world worldwide. At this point, we will start and have a look at the facts and figures there. To this effect, we have the expert, Dr. Helga Willer from the Research Institute for Biological Agriculture, FIBO, and she's going to report on how organic has developed all over the world. Thanks a lot, Joyce. So wonderful that this event takes place. Also, the BIOFACH will come off in summer only. I'm very glad to present the figures, also that we could hear what is going on in Germany. Let me get started here. Yeah, we have been doing that for more than 20 years, that once a year we share the most recent figures on organic agriculture worldwide. These are the 2020 figures. The 21 figures are arriving only just now. Germany is usually the first country to have the 21 figures, and every year we publish a book which actually came from the print shop yesterday. And you can order it from us, but you can also upload with Organic WorldNet and the statisticsfeeble.org. And I'm going to show you the most important facts from this book. These are the trends. Our overview chart simply that actually shows the entire book in a nutshell. So we have a growth. We had a growth in the surface and a bigger growth among the producers and a very huge growth in the market worldwide. But that was known, and I think it was a good year for the organic farming. So the countries with the biggest organic area, Australia is #1 for a long time. It's not going to change. But all of a sudden, some Latin American countries have joined us, and India are ahead, and also France. That's the country in Europe with the widest organic food area. That was a huge jump, and so the distribution by continent is similar to what it used to be. But Australia and Oceania is actually losing importance, and Germany is also a part of the top 10 list, is number 10 with regards to the organic food space service. This chart shows which countries actually had more than 10% of organic services, and yellow actually are the EU countries. This shows they are quite well on their way. There are a lot of EU countries who have more than 10% share, and you know, but by 2030 we want to have 35%. It looks quite good. In Austria is the only country so far which has already reached its target. And in Germany, actually appears on this list for the first time with 10.2%. In the meantime, it's 10.8%, as we've heard. And this is the organic space growth worldwide. We can see that it was more this year than it used to be in the last 4 weeks. The biggest leaps before were in Australia, because they changed lots of huge spaces and areas, but 4% more in 2020. And here, once again, I actually summarized the countries with the growth in hectares, and you can see that Argentina actually had a huge growth, almost 1 million hectares. And Uruguay also had lots of increase, but Greenland spaces, also India increased a lot, and France, 300,000 hectares. That's a lot. And here you can see development by continents. And in 5 years leaps, 2000, 2015, 15, 20, and you can see the continuous growth in Europe for the entire time, whereas in other continents this growth was not that high. There were ups and downs. This is the development of the agricultural area in the European Union. That's 9.2% share, roughly 15 million hectares. I don't know whether you still have last year's figures in mind. It's not directly comparable, because this chart is based on the EU 27 countries, which does no longer include the United Kingdom for all years. And last year, we prepared a chart showing where to go, more than 40 million hectares. And here you can see that in 2021, there was a good growth. Yellow is what it was, and blue is what is required to reach the 25% target. And you can see that in 2020, this target has not actually been reached. That should have been reached by 2020, but we can see that there are lots of promoting measures from the European Union, things that can be done. I'm very confident that this will be reached. And now I'm going to talk about the market. We'll see the biggest organic food markets with their market volumes. United States, 50 million, Germany, France, and the light blue line shows the comparison with regards to the previous year. So we see a wonderful growth everywhere. Once again, the distribution on the left, we can see that Germany and France account for half of the organic food market, the biggest market worldwide. That's the chart on the right. You can see that the United States still continue to be the strongest internal market, but the European Union is something similar. This shows the market increase worldwide and in Europe, and worldwide now it's 121 billion euros and 14 billion euros more than before. This has never existed before. The exact growth is a bit difficult to calculate because of the fluctuations in currencies, but it was more than 10% in any case. And in Europe, plus 15%, 7 billion more. It's really tremendous. And here you can see the development in the individual countries. The blue line shows the growth rate 2020, and the light blue one, the growth rate 2019. And here you can see that this has a huge level of dynamics in 2020. However, there were also other effects of the pandemic. So, unfortunately, there are not a lot of figures for catering out outdoor. And you can see that for France, it was not easy. And so there were also other effects of the pandemic. So let's interrupted supply chains, lack of packaging material, and restriction at the transport, or some checks could not be carried out. Also, trade fairs were postponed or did not come off at all. There are lots of effects, and the authors really perfectly described that in this book. If you want to have a look at that, this actually comes up again and again in all the reports. And now, towards the end, let me give you some key figures. Switzerland is the country with the highest per capita consumption, 418 euros. 2020, and after, followed by Denmark with a market share. Denmark is ahead with 13%, followed by Austria, Switzerland, and Germany with 6.4% was number 7. And thanks a lot. This is the last one I want to conclude with. I'm very curious to see the further development. For sure, the market is not going to develop any further, as in this very special year. But for sure, it's continuing to grow, and the services as well, I'm sure. And it's really interesting that these efforts are not made by the government in Europe alone, but in lots of other countries all over the world. And this is perfectly described in this book by the authors, you see. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much to Dr. Helga Willer from FIBEL for this really quick and very focused ride through the figures. And I also recommend our afternoon event on the international market, where you will see Helga Willer and Anna Sharp in the deep dive. And you can get this information in more details. But now, Helga, you already gave the transition. So we want to have a look how this development can be politically assessed on the international market. And so they could not be any better than Louise Lüdicol from the IFOAM Organics Internationals. So Louise Lüdicol, please. So you can also ask your question in the chat. And I would like to pass on to you, Louise Lüdicol, for IFOAM Organics International, for the political assessment of the worldwide situation. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Joyce. Thanks a lot, Helga. And thanks a lot to all participants that we can have this session today, because it's always exciting to see the figures in the beginning of the year and also to understand this order. So the categorization of all these figures, that's my turn, and I would like to comment on these figures, and I would like to bring them in the context of the global politics. And don't need to add that we had a pandemic. You all know that. But there's also one more thing. We need sustainable food systems which actually level off the effects of the climate crisis. And this is the reason why this term food systems is very important. and they should be stable and resilient against unforeseeable climate events, and the success to sustainable food for healthy food for all should be guaranteed. We have learned a lot about the German, the Western market, but when we talk about all of markets, we also talk about the farmers in other parts of the world, and this is exactly the ones who are very vulnerable. The entire planet is vulnerable, and also the food system, nutrition system has become much clearer to us, and COVID-19 has also sharpened our view at one of the biggest global crises we are facing. That's the climate crisis. And the climate crisis, again, actually fires another crisis, which is the biodiversity loss. And this, again, in turn, shows how the connections are, how everything is linked. And also agriculture, farming in Germany and Europe, but also in the entire world, is actually a hub for all these crises, but at the same time for the solutions. So consumers understand that implicitly or explicitly. This is what the market data we've just seen show us. In part, this is a sound own interest. That means their own health. But this is also related to the world's, to the Earth's healthiness, that a number of farmers want to change the system. We see that the stronger increase in sales as against the conventional ones shows that there is a kind of tension in the market. But this kind of tension can also be seen from an invitation to further change it, or to the start to a real change in farming. As I said, the organic industry is ready for this. I'd like to explain this trend with three important events. We had the Food System Summit, we had the Climate Summit, and the Organic World Congress. First of all, Food System Summit. This was a consultative process on UNO level, which at the end actually ended in resulted in a huge festival in September. A very important finding being that the General Secretary of UNO said that talking about farming and food is the same conversation we have about climate, biodiversity, and health. So here too, they have become aware that everything is linked. We, as IFOAM Organics, contributed that the terms organic farming and bio are actually penetrated into all these elements of this process, and so we insisted on politicians' coherence. We heard that before, Ms. Andres, when it was about politics in Germany. It is only with coherence that we can walk the next step. The result of this Food System Summit was that a coalition of farming and regenerative farming and organic farming on a global level exists, and we as IFOAM Organics International, since we actually want to bring all the organic movements together, want to cooperate, want to make sure that the politics and the entire system is coherent and continues to go into the right direction. And then the second one, the Climate Summit in Glasgow. And so prior to this Climate Summit was a study conducted by Greenpeace and others showing the share of climate gases if you produce synthetic nitrogen fertilizer. 41 tons of emissions of climate gases are generated. If you just break it down to agriculture and farming, it means 1/4 of all emissions in farming are caused by the production, the use of fertilizer of this. And actually, we don't have that in organic farming. In addition, we also know that the organic farming actually has a lot of positive effects for climate protection. And this is what the Tunen report of 2019 showed, that the soils which are used for our ecological farming in our moderate climate zones, they produce much less greenhouse gases. And this is due to the fact that these organic soils have a 10% higher content of organic substances. So we use no synthetic agents. We actually produce positive effects for climate protection. And the third one, the agricultural ecological practice for organic farming help being very resilient to very fluctuating events. Three advantages when it comes to the climate. And then our Organic World Congress, where the CEO of the Potsdam Climate Institute, Mr. Jan Roxam, also delivered a speech. Please allow me to quote from him. He said that in future, there's going to be can only be one type of farming, which is organic farming, and all the other previously practiced methods will prevent any future possibility to engage in farming. This may sound a bit dark and black, but his contribution was very positive, because he also said in base that on the Lancet studies that there is sufficient for all people to live on healthy food, but only if we produce that sustainably and if we actually reduce the meat consumption a lot. And the positive effect being that resulting food is exactly the one the UNO World Nutrition Program recommends for all of us. You know, and that's what we've heard, that also on the EU level, there's recognition for this type of farming, that this is the guideline. Everything has to move along to we have the success strategy in the afternoon. We will learn more about that, and it showed that agriculture and farming plays a very important role in strengthening and the resilience of our very diversified and sometimes also unique agricultural systems. And the target of eco is 25%, and in Europe 30%. And we've seen that these figures can be reached. And we would also like to thank for the support of the EU Agriculture Commissioner, Mr. Wojciechowski, because he very often emphasizes the advantages of organic farming and the advantages that we can learn from all countries where this actually exceeds 10%, as we could see, 10% of areas of organic spaces. And we, in our association, we actually make sure that these experiences be linked on a global level, that we can go a step forward. So our conclusion is that in view of global pandemic, we see the necessity of resilience more than ever before, and biosystems based on health, ecology, fairness, and care. This has worked and works today, and this is shown by millions of farmers and food producers worldwide. And we are looking forward to show all these factors, to meet all these actors of the supply chain, because they do all that work. And at the end, there are other reasons to celebrate, because there are various birthdays. We've already heard that the BÖLW in Germany has its 20th anniversary, but we as IFOAM Organics International celebrate our 50th anniversary this year. IFOAM Organics Europe 20 and IFOAM's Asia the 10th anniversary. So there's a lot to celebrate, and this is the reason why this year we actually called it the Year of Organics, and we'll very happy if all our members in the ecological industry have this bracket for their events. That's everything I wanted to share with you. Thanks a lot, Louise Lütikold, for this evaluation of the international situation. My dear media representatives, so we got questions from you, which we would like to read aloud and we pass them on to the panelists. Let us start with a question of Carsten Dierich from the Der Welt and colleague on the panel. Please be very short and succinct in the answers. Mr. Dierich is interested in the 30% target or the 25% in the European Union. So first question to Tina Andres, how much more surfaces for organic food need to be transformed? And that could also be answered by Louise for the international level. That's the first question. Well, 30%, 12% of change every year. This is possible, feasible. This is what we had 4 times in the last 20 years. This is a target which can be achieved, but this needs to be accompanied with continuing ideas for the farmers, and for Europe means more than doubling the situation we have at present. But this is also possible because we can learn from countries where organic farming has exceeded 15–20%. And this is why the EU really relies on exchanging information on a ministerial level, but also agricultural movements worldwide in general. So one more question also from Mr. Dierich, who says how much funds are actually made available for the transformation? How much should it have to be in our view, Tina? Well, there are data at the Thun Institute of the BMEL, but so this also includes the requirements of the state, and with less than 2% for organic research. So there's still a huge gap. So this needs to be filled with life. And here we expect a certain number. And Louise, would you also like to comment on that for the European international area? European area, I think it is difficult. I do not know enough about that, but we know that on an international level, let me call it, the UNO research organizations hardly spend any money for organic farming. And this needs to change to ensure the entire transformation can take place. Thanks a lot. Now let us go back to Germany and to a question of Susanne Salzgeber. She's freelancer and free editor, and she asked, what is the share of the organic retail trade in the entire turnover? And she also asked about the development in recent years. And I'd like to pass on to Diana Schack for the figures and a short evaluation afterwards by Tina Andres. Well, organic food retail actually accounted for 3.8 billion euros. I think it was 24% of the German share, 2% less than last year, because it actually went down a bit. And at the same time, the food retail actually grew so much, and also the other retail places grew by 7%. Well, of course, it's also a very exciting question, and considering the incredible number of conventional retail outlets, the performance of these specialties is really high. This small, actually, flaw, I really experienced it myself. These are understandable factors which led to this, for instance, so closing down the bistros, for instance, and so the failure to restart the catering industry, because catering in restaurants were actually changed to restaurants after the crisis. So there are various factors which count here. But altogether, we have to say that with 100% of organic in the natural retail, I also get 100% of assortment. I don't have to turn around a product to see whether it's sustainable, but I know exactly that I get actually sustainable assortment. That's the big strength as against the conventional one. But there's one more thing we need to add. The development of all outlets in the last 10 years has actually increased in turnover. Well, and thanks a lot. We have time for one more question left. And we're getting lots of questions on prices and price increases. And this is the reason why I would like to take one just for all these questions. I would like to ask it, which are the price increases we are expecting in 2021 in short notice, and how much should prices actually increase medium term? So the prices of agriculture. So international, national answer, Diana first, and then Helga for international. Well, higher prices, I think, will be the topic of this year. Oh, that's what it is already, because there's a huge gap. We have lots of cost increases in agriculture and also in processing, and price increases also for the producers in some products. And presently, the processors are actually clamped in between, stuck in between, because retail trade says, on the other hand, I don't want to increase the store prices. I don't want to have more expensive food. That's the tension in the end. If the energy prices, the transport prices, and the labor costs, if everything rises at the end in the store, this needs to be reflected as well, because otherwise there are some of the participants of the supply chain that can't survive. And this is something we don't want at all. We want to increase organic farm, want to have a high number of processors, more farming. We want to have handicrafts and processing, and this costs more. And we could also see that the consumers are also willing to pay more for sustainable good food. And so we need to walk this step and dare doing this as a supply chain. I can't add anything. I think Dan has perfectly explained that, and I think if that's the way it is for Germany. And I don't see why this should be any different on an international level. Yeah, thanks a lot to all of you on the panel for answering the questions. We have more questions, but unfortunately, we can't do that. Dear media representatives, at the virtual Bund press conference, so we'll try to answer that. You will reach our press agencies, the national one, international communication at IFOAM.bio. All present industry information, including the reports, can be found at BIOFACH and IFOAM.bio and in the virtual BIOFACH press folder. And this event will also be real life afterwards. If you missed anything, please tell it to the others. Thank you very much for your interest. I would like to thank all the speakers, and I would like to point out that for the deep dive, you're invited to see us again this afternoon or after the cosmetic industry news. And we wish you a wonderful day. We're looking forward to your reports and hope to see you in person, face-to-face at BIOFACH and all the other events live. Thanks a lot, and see you then. Thanks a lot from our part to all the previous speakers. And thanks a lot for this insight in the categorization of the present market situation on the international and national level. We will continue with this press conference with natural cosmetics, because on the market there's a lot of movement as well, which impact transformation in the actual trends have on the market. The producers, the retail trade, and the consumers' behavior will be explained by Mirja Eckert, the owner of the new and editor of Natural Cosmetics Industry Monitor. At this point, I'd like to pass on to Ms. Eckert So now I can see her. So warm welcome, Emilia Eckert. Good to have you here. I've just said, so there's a lot of movement in the natural cosmetics sector as well. What are the new findings with regards to the present status in the market? Where the 10 minutes on the current information and the situation. It's not a lot, so let me get started immediately. But before, I would like to say that I'm really happy to that what I've heard before, what kind of intensiveness sustainability has on the market. And a lot of people know that I actually deal with NECA trends and market research for the natural cosmetics market. I've been doing so for a longer time. When a couple of years I started with these activities in the health sector, there were some tendencies of what is happening right now, but that we can also have these facts and to see the change of the consumer's behavior towards sustainability in industries such as cosmetics and also in food and nutrition. There's something I'm really happy to see. And the ones who have known me for a longer time, I'm the one who previously always talked about positive developments. That's the same today in 2021. Now, after in 2020, people had a lot of time or more time in the bathrooms and actually bought lots of inventories, and the cupboards were filled. So natural cosmetics is the only partial segment in the German overall market in 2021, again, has a positive development. We're talking about a turnover growth of 1.8% in Germany, the biggest natural cosmetics market of Europe, but also with the biggest and one of the biggest natural cosmetic markets worldwide. Now, how was this figure calculated? We orientate ourselves to the size of the entire market, then derive partial segments. That's conventional cosmetic, the close to nature, and also natural cosmetics, which includes certified and non-certified cosmetics. And so I'm not going to talk about the details on the research approach. You can see that on our webline. The fact is that the segment is growing in an overall market, which is even going down in Germany. And there's one more thing you should know. In addition to the 1.8% of growth in natural cosmetics, that not only the conventional area goes down, but this time also the near-natural cosmetics. Before I say something about the worldwide situation, I would like to just talk about the biggest market in Europe, in Germany. Where does this 1.8% of growth come from? You may be interested in that. There are a couple of reasons. Let's just dive into that. On the one hand, we have a larger supply, this wide assortment, which keeps growing all the time. We have more visibility on the market and more presence in all channels. As a consequence, we could the demands had to be covered more widely in the years where we built it up. It was different looking at the figures 10 years ago. And when we just take skincare accounted for 3/4 of the entire turnover of natural cosmetics. Nowadays, it's different. The daily care products, they have risen a lot. In the past, the consumers mostly trusted the natural cosmetic products in areas where they stayed on the skin. The functionality and also the lobby ability for other areas had not been given yet. And over the last few years, this has undergone a tremendous change. And we see that, particularly in the last year, that the daily care products have undergone a huge growth in turnover. With regards to the suppliers, an increasing number of product categories are offered, also price categories. And from a consumer's perspective, we can say now we also have the lip care or the shower cream or the fixed shampoo from natural cosmetics, which actually ends up in the basket. So this may lower the average price, but the coverage of the demand rises, and this gives us more acceptance, more visibility for natural cosmetics assortments, and everything becomes wider. And so hand in hand, or together with that, we have the logical consequence, the distribution channels. Here, we do not only have the commodity groups, which are more and more present, but also the situation across the distribution channels, which is an important reason for the 1.8% of plus on the German natural cosmetics market. Again, we could find out that the stationary, the specialist trade that we know from the history is losing, and the drugstore markets and the food retail store with its formats, and especially the consumer markets, have gained. This is a historical development which is very important. We have realized it for a couple of years, but this year, due to the presence and the distribution channels and the availability of the commodity groups, we are talking about the fact that natural cosmetics has become a mainstream because it is available in each sales channel. And let us stick to mainstream just to make it more clear to you and sharp on this image about the distinction between very successful mainstream players. I'd like to start with the drugstore markets. So still, that's the sales channel for natural cosmetics in Germany. Here, the drugstore markets could keep their market shares, and again, they actually just took the one back there market shares from the food industry in 2020. That means that the drugstore markets in general are considered to be the place to buy this beauty care. And we can see lots of positive impulses. Now let us look at the food retail store and the discounters. These are the typical formats which also benefit, let's say, through one-stop shopping, because there the people also take natural cosmetics with them, but they don't have this width of range as in other channels. This is rather the case in consumer markets. We have a special position because they have large spaces of drugstore departments in lots of cases, and especially in the last 1 to 2 years, they have a wider range of natural cosmetics articles in their assortment. In this context, people always keep asking me about their own internal brands. Usually, they're also part, and I think it's very exciting that natural cosmetics has own brands which are newly placed, and so they're also part of superordinated sustainability strategies. There's one more thing I realized, and I've clearly got to say that. So the recently established natural retail brands, so the brand awareness is much lower than the one of the drugstore markets that have already been tested and proven the market for a longer time. For sure, you also want to learn something about e-commerce. I can perfectly imagine that, but I can clearly have to tell you that it's a very complex structure. There are no clear figures. The figures we experience outside come from different calculations, and there are just two things I would like to share with you, which are important. The definition of e-commerce is very difficult and complex as such, because lots of channels are involved and a lot is going on. And what is important, and you should know, you can see that from many studies, that on the side of the consumers today, the internet, the information source, is information source number one for natural cosmetics. So in the end, we can see that's my personal conclusion with regards to e-com. We can't actually forecast it so well because there are constantly new formats appearing, and the sales channel is actually undergoing a strong development. In the meantime, there are smaller two-digit turnover share with regards to natural cosmetics, but we need to keep an eye on that. It's a young sales channel, so natural cosmetics is quite young. So let us talk about the international level. Now, we've talked about the biggest natural cosmetic market in Europe, but also worldwide with Germany. What about the worldwide situation? Here we are we find out an ongoing sensitiveness for cosmetics, the sensitiveness which could damage my skin, and the environment is present everywhere. And for years, as a consequence, natural cosmetics on an international level has also undergone a positive development. What we can clearly see, however, this is the fact that we have different maturity levels, and natural cosmetics is impacted a lot in its sales by the existing purchasing power in each country. And there are no specific figures about that, because the basis always varies. What is natural cosmetics, what is not natural cosmetics. Just to give you an example, in our development, we can say, so what I've seen, I haven't seen a lot for 2021, but I really presently assume that we have a small to medium one-digit growth on the world market for natural cosmetics. So 1 digit to medium digit. That's something we can assume. And an insight into certified natural cosmetics, and for sure there are lots of international developments we can derive from. We'll see that today with Cosmos and two in a talk session. I haven't talked about the consumers yet. Who are the people buying natural cosmetics? Do we have more or less? What about the situation? The only thing I can say, this is a general situation. The relevant shifting towards natural cosmetics continues. And in a very astonishing level, the figures published about the German market in 2021, 1.6 million additional customers could pay one for natural cosmetics. Such a growth has never existed before in our industry. So the difference from the existing one, which actually went away, and the ones that joined, there's 1.6 million. I mean, that's a tremendous figure. We can say that looking at that, and I did that with my cooperation partner of GEFCA, 1 in 3 customers buying cosmetics in Germany decides in favor of natural cosmetics. 1 in 3 customers. And the present developments, which I've already described about supply, distribution channels, and consumers, they are really matching right now. What is important as well, and what is really striking, natural cosmetics, the lower share of elderly buyers is available as compared to conventional cosmetics, and nearly natural one. So it's actually bought across all age groups. Also the 1.6 million buyers, they are evenly distributed, but nevertheless, looking at who buys natural cosmetics, here we have a clear younger development, because we have more buyers who actually decide in favor of natural cosmetics as compared to conventional and natural cosmetics. So the range of buyers is also decisive with brands and trademarks. It's winning. So the trademarks actually were the ones developing further on, characterized by strong drugstore own brand concepts, but also the brand area is winning. And I've not talking about innovation and trends, and I have to postpone that, unfortunately. As you know, at VIVANESS, every year we actually award the trend categories, and I'm very curious. The VIVANESS stream has more time to have a closer look at the trends. And there's one more thing, I believe. We have we are going to have a lot of long-lasting trends, well, not only of product trends, but also social and consumer trends. That's what they are established by, and we will meet them again, and we will deal with them in future as well, and they will transform. So that's the end of my short sprint. That's fine. So there's one thing we should remember. These are 4 things. We have growth worldwide, and also in Germany, we're in a shrinking market. We have a development which is positive. Natural cosmetics actually extend the market share, and together with near natural, we have already reached 20% of green concepts as compared to 80% of conventional products. the drugstore markets and the LESH and the distribution or the consumer markets, these are the ones which are responsible for this growth together with online, and the tendencies in generally for growth are available all over the world. Commodity groups, better availability, as I showed you on the example of the history in sales channels. Please remember, mainstream visibility is available in all distribution channels when it comes to the consumers on an international level, so they become younger and younger. There are lots of studies that were conducted at the Congress. We will see a couple of them. We have lots of young buyers, and this brings me back to the secured figure of Germany. 1/3 of the cosmetic customers decides in favor of natural cosmetics. Thanks a lot, Miriam. Sorry, I have to interrupt at this point, but I'm really happy about your commitment and this wonderful heart. So actually you stick to the motto of your heart here. So sorry, we had to interrupt at this point. We see that there is a lot of information both for this afternoon. We're all looking forward to this. And once again, I would like to invite you to our VIVANESS Congress. Don't miss it. It will start at 2 p.m. We would like to thank at this point with all the participants, with all speakers. Of this press conference, please ask your questions to all of us after this event. We're happy if you actually log in again. We'll continue at 12 with the first Congress session, the world of organic agriculture, statistics and emerging trends. I hope you will stay with us. See you then.